I didn't read anything online. I didn't know it was canceled. I'm going to guess. I would put money on it that there are a few others that are in the same hole in the water as me, in the same boat, the boat of naivety and lack of knowledge, meaning that they thought maybe there'd be a net tonight. I remember watching a net years ago as a kid in Los Angeles, every weekend on the Mickey Mouse show. Good old Annette. For some reason, she got me interested in mathematics, like certain types of curves and such. WA6JKN, N6AM. This is Adult Radio Net. Over.
Okay, well, after all that, I felt obligated to pull out a blank piece of paper so I could start writing down calls of those that wish to check in. So I have N6AF at the top of the list. And number 2, I have WA6 Juliet Kilowatt November. Yeah, Annette. Yeah, I remember. Matter of fact, the reciprocal of infinity describes her well. It's the little pieces that really interested me. Go ahead.
Yeah, copy that. A firm 10-4. So let me sit back in my squeaky chair. Let me confirm it's squeaky. Let's take a test here. This is a calibrated government test. Hold on. It appears to be correct. So I'm going to sit back for a minute. I know there's another taker. There's got to be. N6AF. Go ahead, anybody.
Didn't hear anybody here. Nope, didn't hear anybody.
Right.
They'll check in. This is WA6JKN. Holding down the fort of the Annette. Holding down the Annette. So there you go. Anyway, I just got back from Arizona. I was out there visiting with Paul, K6LMQ. He's got a nice ranch out there in Kingman, Arizona. It's pretty big, and so we had lots of fun playing ham radio, working on rigs and stuff like that. And we managed to, in one day, can you imagine, 2 hams, we managed to fix 3 transmitters, 1 amplifier, 220, a Thunderbolt, what was that, Globe King 500, and some kind of a national NC6 or something like that transceiver. We did all that in one day. Can you imagine something like that? Usually, one item usually sits on my workbench for a couple of weeks or longer, you know. But man, you get 2 hams together that are highly motivated to get this equipment working, just so you can enjoy it. I mean, that Thunderbolt, for an example, that is a beautiful transmitter. I don't know if you're familiar with the Johnson Thunderbolt, but that's a really cool transmitter. So keep a pause there in case somebody else wants to jump in here and talk about transmitters or receivers or antennas or whatever. N6AF and the growing group, WA6JKN, the Roundtable.
Nothing. I don't hear anything. So let me see here. Let me turn off my voice modifier. Sorry about that. So let me see. A couple comments. I've been talking. I've got a group that I chat with in the morning, and we're not a net. We always emphasize that. We're just a group of guys that that get on the air and blabbermouth. And around the Phoenix area, New Mexico, there's one guy in New Braunfels, Texas. But it's kind of a spinoff from that 7155 group. So we meet at 7162, and several members, including myself, are RVers. So we've got a little motorhome, and sometimes, a couple of times a year, several of those guys will coordinate something, and they'll meet up somewhere. So there's 2 or 3 of them at a place called, I think it's Kabai Lake. Kind of sounds like shish kebabs. I asked them if they had shish kebabs on the barbecue last night. The Kabai Lake, that is north of Flagstaff. So there you go. And I will be out in Kyle, Texas, in early September for I am a dinosaur, for a grandson's wedding. Can you believe it? I swore when I walked by the bathroom window when I got up this morning, I saw a ghost. It kind of looked like me, but all the ghost's hair was gray. Not that wrinkled looking, kind of athletic looking, but gray hair. It really spooked me. I'm not going to look in the mirror anymore. So anyway, there's that. Kyle, Texas, flying to Austin. My wife wants to go see the Riverwalk in San Antone, and of course the Alamo. So we're going to go try to save the Alamo and make a donation to one of the restaurants along the river there. I know it's going to be ridiculous, but once in a while. The other comment I wanted to make, Kevin, is that I got up close and personal with the giant dirigible hangar at Moffett Field today, and same thing, I was right next to the wind tunnel, and my ears would probably be ringing if they had fired it up. But I got onto the base at the Ames Research Center, and all I had to do was show them my Mickey Mouse Club membership card, and they let me in. And we went to, I was with a bicycle club, and we rode to, I'm not making this up, it's the NASA Space Bar, and we were fully expecting to belly up to the bar and be rubbing elbows with a 3-headed green guy from Venus or Mars or something, but there were no aliens in the space bar. It was really kind of a disappointment. WA6JKN from N6, always foolish. Over.
Well, I'm glad you made a nice long transmission there, Chuck. That way I could grab a couple of bites of my salad that I'm having for dinner tonight. Oh yeah, been to the NASA Space Bar, Cafe, whatever. Yeah, I remember working over there, helping them with some well, I don't want to call it simulation. What would you call it? I guess it's so long ago that my brain can't even put it together, so, oh well. What we did is we took a Boeing aircraft and we outfitted it for remote control operations. We did have an actual name to the program. I'm just trying to remember what it was. Yeah, boy, when time flies, you just can't remember. But anyway, it worked really great. We had having a big Boeing aircraft flying around the San Francisco Bay Area, all computer controlled. Everything was controlled by the computer, and all the major and minor flight control services, to include comms and other functions. And it always had a crew on board, but the crew didn't have the what you would call the traditional front seat. What it had was an Atari. Check this out. An Atari joystick. So if anything were to happen, you need to take control of the aircraft. You had the Atari joystick to grab. Think about that, huh? Oh, yeah. Then we also had, was over on the Navy side, working with those big mainframe computers, where we were simulating anti-submarine warfare aircraft for the Navy. That was a lot of fun. We even had an old simulator that was run out of a trailer for that aircraft you see there on Moffett Field. It was a P-2V. Yeah, that was the two turning, two burning. That's what they called it. Two turning and two burning. The old anti-warfare aircraft with the little mad boom on the end. Track down subs. The other simulators were the P-3 Lockheed Orions. Boy, I tell you what, talk about a mainframe or aircraft frame that had a long life. I think they were up to P3, update 3 when I left that place in 1986. And as far as Hangar 1's concerned, we got Hangar 1, 2, and 3. Hangar 1, that's where my office was. We used to do things there that was pretty fascinating. We used to be the garage for the U-2 back in the day, and when the U-2 was important and still classified and so on and so forth, we used to have Marines surrounding that aircraft inside the hangar with fully automatic weapons and combat gear. They were to protect that aircraft or aircraft, whatever we happen to have inside that hangar. We bring it in at night. No one sees anything. And taxis right. They open up the big doors. The taxis right inside, and they shut the door. Have you ever seen those doors open? Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I remember when NASA took over. The chief of NASA, I can't remember his name now, was dedicating Moffett Field as the NASA airfield or whatever they call it, change the name to. I don't even remember. But he played a song from what was it called, 2000 Space Odyssey, and as those doors were opening up, this was on a big PA system. It was loud. You can actually feel it. It felt like the rumble was coming from those big doors opening up. That was a spectacular event. So anyway, those are the few memories that you triggered out of the back of my memory. N6AF, WA6JKN.
Very good, Kevin. N6AF, I was had my laptop muted, but I was watching with Ernest the waterfall display, and I didn't note any signals. I still say submit that there's at least there's some in the audience. So very good on the Atari joystick. Thinking back maybe 30 years, I recall, I don't know which, I think it was an Airbus that came out, one of the first commercial aircraft with the little joystick there. No, yoke. And I'm not making a yoke about this. I remember hearing that some pilots were a little distraught, having that little thing down there. But, but you get used to it, right? And very good on the Atari joystick. So you reminded me of the sad news item, the submersible that imploded. They were talking about how some people were critical of some of these sort of Rube Goldberg, we could get into the whole thing about the material science, the misdeployment of carbon fiber and so forth, going under compression rather than expansion, just a mess, delaminated it. But anyway, they used a gaming controller to run the electric steering motors and the propellers on it. And somebody's reaction was, "You're kidding," in this taped interview. And he goes, "Yeah, this is how we drive this thing around 10,000 feet down." And the impression was, it was kind of like something, that you put together your first rocket experiment when you're a freshman in high school or something, and it's just all kind of haywire. But anyway, so I came into the area in 1980 and started working for Faranon Electric, that then had just been acquired by Harris. And it became the Harris Microwave Communications Division. And what I remember living here around Redwood City area in 1980 was the drone of those 4 engines on the P-3 Orion that would launch out. You would know the period. I think it was every 45 minutes, or maybe it was every hour and 45 minutes, but it just seemed like you got used to it, right? And, you might as well have just had a neighbor that had a fetish for running a Toro lawnmower, hourly. And that's okay, Fred's doing his thing there, mowing the invisible lawn in his backyard. And I guess he would alternate that with rowing himself around the back lawn in an invisible rowboat, but we won't get into that. So yeah, the P-3 Orion. I did see one or two, at least one jet aircraft. I didn't go wandering around, but there was a jet aircraft that looked like you'll know what it is. It looks like a miniature, what you just said, for, it's got the very, very straight, like no airfoil kind of wings, and the intakes for the turbines are on each side of the fuselage, and it looked like a special purpose. You know what? It said NASA on it, so I guess it's a go get the data plane. There you go. So there was one or two of the go get the data planes there. And then my last quick story on Moffett, I know nothing about the place, was my mentor for 25 years at Harris was a ex-military, ex-Bell Labs guy that was a radar expert, and I think he was a Marine. So his name was Richard. So one day Richard was down there on the base when it was active. I don't know what year, maybe the very early 80s. And he wandered into the wrong area. Now, I never really heard specifically how he managed to do that. And you'd think a military guy like that was all techie would know. So, he went into a covered area, into a tent, and almost got shot. He was basically arrested temporarily didn't matter that he had a military ID on him. He was in the wrong place, and he got marched out of that base and severely scolded. WA6JKN, N6AM.
And we have Jay in there. Let me write that down. NY6L. Why don't you go ahead and take it? Pass it over to WA6JKN. We got N6AF, WA6JKN, and NY6L.
All right. Well, good pleasant afternoon to all. NY6L, stay here in this area where it's about 70 degrees still. And, well, just preparing for KRW swap meet, getting stuff loaded, finished loading up the vehicle here. I just wanted to see how this Collins zip line is getting out. I'm running about 100 to maximum 120 watts DEC output. So anyway, I didn't get a chance to write everything down yet. So my apologies. So whoever's supposed to get it next, please grab it and I'll take it on the next go around. NY6L, Jay here in this area.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, was there someone else in there besides Jay?
No, I said Chuck here. I just said go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I hear Jay just fine. There is QSP on your signal, Jay, but 100% copy. You were 10 over S9 to about down and dipped down to about an S6, which was dealing with the noise level here, but I still heard you. And fine business on getting stuff loaded up there for the TRW the right way. Yep, you're loading it up the right way for TRW. I used to know John. John was one of my mentors. He was actually a next-door neighbor. He was I guess you'd call him a young engineer working for TRW back in those days. That was back in the 60s. And yeah, I really liked John. He introduced me to TTL. Yeah, TTL, transistor logic back in it would have been 1960s. It's kind of hard to believe that it was back in them days, that far back, but it was. Yeah, TTL, transistor logic. And I remember my first circuit I built was to use TTL to drive a decade counter. It was a TTL oscillator driving a decade counter that, let's see, did I have I don't know. I think that particular that decade counter could drive directly Nixie tubes back in them days. We had those were really cool. The Nixie tubes, and remember there was 180 volts on the B plus. So that's what we called it back in them days. They were still B plus, And I built a Nixie tube that had alphanumeric. And how I got the alphanumeric figured out was I used a diode matrix. So I learned how to use and really appreciate forward bias and reverse bias for firing up a particular segment in the Nixie tube. That was pretty cool. All right, now let's move over to the mysteries, the history and the mysteries of Hangar 1. Now, what I'm about to tell you, you'll have to turn your volume down a little bit so no one else in your room can hear it. Okay, because this might be one of those things that be considered supposed to be held close to the vest. So the only thing I ask is you turn your volume down a little bit just so other people that aren't authorized to hear this story, so they don't hear it. Well, anyway, there was a P3 inside that Hangar 1. And when you're working on it and you have the bomb bay doors open, you're supposed to put like a shorting bar that goes across the actuators, and what it does is I call it like a shorting bar, like you want to short out your high voltage supply, so if anybody ever turns it on when you're not looking, the short goes through the shorting bar and it won't kill you. Well, this bar, I can't remember the name of the bar, but I call it the shorting bar. It prevented the Bombay doors from closing. If somebody happens to throw the wrong switch up in the front seat, and if you happen to be working in the Bombay area, you don't want to have that door close on you by mistake, because if it does, it will pinch you and kill you. Well, this sailor was working on the P3. Somebody threw the switch, and before he can get out of the way completely, he managed to get pinched right below the belly button. Yeah, right around in the belly button area. It crushed him right there. So make sure you turn your volume down, because we don't want anybody unauthorized to hear this story. Besides, it could be considered very, very R-rated and everything else, because it has a sad story associated with it. So anyway, we got all the experts together, the medical people and all that kind of stuff, and they determined that he would die instantly if we opened up the Bombay doors because of where he was pinched. The doors were actually keeping his upper body alive. We opened the doors, you can imagine what would happen. He would bleed out. And so the only thing we could do is we ran a comm wire to him, a regular twisted pair telephone wire, so we can hook up a phone so he can talk to his wife, the XYL there. So he was able to spend some time there, and when he gave the go-ahead, we had the medical crew standing by, and they opened up the Bombay doors, and he died instantly. So that's a true story. That's one of the stories from that Hangar 1, and I got a few others that I'll save for another time. But that was the number one. We have hidden tunnels. That's another one where you have to turn down the volume. You have ladders that go up on top. Now I'll tell you one more. I know you want to hear one more. Somebody thought they'd play a practical joke on everybody. And it was around October. And the place is maintained 24/7, so we don't know how this happened. Somebody came in through the side door of the hangar 1, and they noticed that there was something hanging from one of the beams up very, very high, and that's way up there. And it looked like a sailor had hung himself. So you call the MP. Well, that's not the MPs. What do they call the Navy? I forget. All the military police out there and everything. And to make the long story shorter, it turned out to be somebody played a practical joke and hung a dummy up there, and it was Halloween. So there you go. All right, N6AF, and I got another one to tell you next time around. WA6JKN.
Alrighty. Great stories. WA6JKN, N6AF, and good evening to Jay there. So NY6L, of course, I associate you with this net. Maybe the vintage net on Tuesday night as well. So this is Chuck up in Redwood City. Emerald Hills, Redwood City, not at the address indicated on my license, although that's a legitimate FCC license. I own that, but that's a rental property. So, and I'm on a 1963 KWM2 tonight, and and I'm running it through 6 dB of padding, and I've got it deloaded, so the transceiver by itself would put out about 50 watts, so that's padded down to about 12.5 watts, right? And running that into a set of 4 MRF421 bipolar junction transistors, each one rated at 290 watts collector dissipation. They're pretty beefy little, they're like the equivalent of more than half of a 3500Z, each one of those planar transistors. And I'm trying to keep my voice down here to about a 400 watt peak. So that's the story. And allegedly, according to W6IRD Wayne, this exact KWM2 spent time in Vietnam in the service. I haven't found any mystery notes in it or anything like that. But maybe I'll find something from Martin Sheen or what was the guy's name? The guy that went crazy in Apocalypse Now. I don't know. We'll see. I haven't really dug through it too much. So the great stories there. Boy, I remember when I was going to Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, the big deal was to try to get a part-time job at TRW Vidar. That was in town there, and they didn't have that many openings, but that was considered a primo job to snag if you could. And anyway, let's see what else to say. I think I'm going to have to bail. I got to go upstairs and see what my wife's up to. I often bring in food. It's kind of like my turn to cook or take her out or bring something in. And I sort of announced, I got home from a 45-mile bicycle ride that included the stop at the NASA space bar there at Moffett Field, and that's how we got started on that topic. And I kind of said, I really don't want to go out tonight, and she said, okay, but with not a lot of agreement in the voice, if you know what I mean. I've been married for decades, so we have complete conversations without ever uttering a single word. So I got to go upstairs. I may be back in a few minutes, or I may disappear. So over to you, Jay. Nice to hear hysteria. Hope there's no hysteria going on down there like there is up north of me in San Francisco every night. So 7-3, and Kevin, thanks for running the show, and very cool stories. I think I'll carry my phone up there listening to KFS so I can hear the story while I'm hunting my wife down in the yard. NY6L to take it, N6AF.
You still there, Jay? Yeah, I think Jay left. Okay. Well, anyway, got one more story for you there, Chuck. This happened also, not related to Hangar 1, but Moffett Field. We had a P3 making what do they call that back in them days? Parallel landings. Parallel. Well, I really don't think it was considered parallel, but anyway, they had two runways. One was a NASA aircraft coming in at the same time as a P3 aircraft. Well, make a long story short, they were coming in on the same runway, and the air traffic controller screwed the pooch. And so, to avoid a collision, the P3 ended up crashing over there at the golf course adjacent to Moffett Field there. And there was only one survivor. I can't remember his name. Bruce, Bobby, Bill, something like that. And so they dispatched the fire department, the rescue crew, and the whole thing. And the only survivor, he ended up getting run over by the emergency vehicles because he was under debris from the crash. So they ran him over, but he still survived. But he ended up in 2 accidents. One with the aircraft avoiding a collision with NASA, crashing in the golf course, and then getting run over by I call it a fire truck for all intents and purposes. Yeah, ran him right over. Broke his legs or whatever. I don't remember. That was a long time ago. Long time ago. Probably about 50 years ago. Yeah, I would say almost. I think this is we're coming up on the 50. No, I think we hit the 50-year anniversary because that happened in April and this is June, so it's 50 years ago. Well, anyway, yeah, like I said, it's got a lot of stories. So we ever get an eyeball QSO going, Chuck, I'll tell you some of the others. It will blow your mind. And that's about the spies. Oh yeah. The spies that came on the base and how they infiltrated some of the those areas that you talk about. Yeah, how they did it, how they were caught. Oh, those are the best ones right there. 73 to you, Jay, if you're still there. N6AF. WA6JKN is clear.
Well, that was in 73. April 12th happens to be our wedding date. So that's kind of interesting. And we haven't crashed and burned, not yet. So that is just crazy. That's the second story I've heard about an aircraft crash and then a survivor getting run over by a fire truck. So I guess the takeaway is if you survive the crash, try to crawl out from under that debris, even if both of your legs aren't working, and just drag yourself out into the open. So I would sure be interested later to hear about the spies and how they forged their documents. Obviously, I'm adjusting my VFO to get on base, and then how they were then caught. That's the good part of the story. Okay, I got to scoot. So anyway, good. Efficient QSO, really some good information, and one of these times, maybe off the air, I'll tell you a couple of kind of bizarre stories from projects I was involved in, like one where I was with a group that was initially blamed for making the long-distance radar feed up in the Rockies west of Denver drop out. And you can imagine the concern in the control tower at the Denver airport. And I take credit for fixing it, even though I didn't do it. And as I knew where I was working, to keep my hands literally behind my back, don't reach into any cabinets. You never know what connector you're going to bump, right? And also never to walk backwards. But somebody else in a higher position, and not part of my company, did exactly that. They reached in and knocked a cable out, and apparently there was no automatic redundancy, and the control tower lost its distant vision, which is not cool at all. Now I'm telling the story. So with phones ringing and alarms going off, I calmly said, one, I didn't do it, but I can help. What did you just do? What's the last thing you were touching? Where were you? And that person walked back to that rack and said, aha, there's a cable hanging there. And I said, there you go. And the skies had no accident. I got a scoot. WA6JK and N6AF. Unless you got a quick comment.
Yeah, that's another good one there. Wow. All right, you better take care of business there. We'll talk to you later. This has been fun. Nice to have a little departure there. By the way, I do have to tell you one thing. I was noticing something really, really peculiar and strange on the spectrum scope here, looking at your signal. And it was a pattern that was very unfamiliar to me, so I had to kind of look it up. And I found it. You have a very distinct pattern on your signal that is only seen when the signal is modulated with intelligence that is above 200 IQ. 73 WA6JKN.
Okay, I had that checked, Kevin, and it's more probably, I think you've got the front end balanced amplifier turned up too high, and you need to recalibrate. Try maybe 148. Over.
Oh, that's too funny. Take care, Chuck. It's been a real pleasure. WA6JK is cleared.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody ever said it, but thanks for helping to keep the nation safe. Talk to you later. N6AF. Yorkie.
7-3, guys. Take care. Safe out there. NY 6 area.
Oh, so you were listening in while you were loading up for the TRW. Well, I'm glad you stopped by, Jay. It's good to hear you, too. Good luck. Hopefully you make lots of money at the TRW swap. WA6JK is pulling the switch.
All right, Kevin. Speaking with you there. And